Hey there folks, I'm Mark, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So remember when I said last week that it looked like things were about to be changing on the Hot 100? Well, it's hard not to look at the charts right now and think that the disruptions are starting to come en masse. Not the album bomb I expected from Lil Nas X, sure, but we got 4 new songs in the top quarter of the Hot 100, as well as a couple shifts I definitely did not predict. We could be in for a more interesting summer coming out of a rather lackluster spring, just putting it out there. Of course, when you have the utter behemoth of Old Town Road by Lil Nas X featuring Billy Ray Cyrus squatting on top of the Hot 100 at number 1, further bolstered by his EP release this week to make the sales, the streaming, and the YouTube even stronger, even as the radio falls away fast. I mean, you kind of get what you expect. And again, props to Lil Nas X on a legitimately well-planned and impressive run, but again, I still think more than ever he's vulnerable next week, especially if the radio keeps evaporating as fast as it does, especially as we got yet another new arrival, another challenger, Senorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello at number 2. As usual, I'll have much more to say on this later on, but considering its own sizable YouTube margin, a radio run that's in full swing, and considerable backing on streaming, it could well be a disruptor if those margins close and fast. Hell, it blew right past Bad Guy by Billie Eilish holding at number 3, which despite losing sales is still holding her own on streaming and is making a credible radio push herself. Awesome! Then there's Talk by Khalid at number 4. Radio's huge, streaming and sales aren't quite there, but it doesn't really matter. And I Don't Care by Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber at number 5. Sales are better, streaming's a lot worse, and while it's chasing on radio, it's got a ways to catch up. Then we got Sucker by the Jonas Brothers holding at number 6, even as the sales shrink because apparently the radio isn't sick of this yet, which I'll admit kind of surprises me. I've been convinced this was out of gas for a full month now. And then rising up to number 7, we got Suge by DaBaby. It doesn't really have the sales, sure, but it held enough on radio to rise, although it seems to be peaking to back up some of the streaming. I'm not sure how much longer it's gonna hold, but next up we got Money in the Grave by Drake featuring Rick Ross, only losing 1 spot down to number 8, because even if the sales fell off hard, the streaming did not, and it actually looks like the radio might finally get on board. Sadly, it's a similar case for No Guidance by Chris Brown featuring Drake at number 9, which will only be further bolstered by the album next week, but for now is just ahead on airplay even as it lags on streaming. Finally, clinging on to number 10 as it stumbles out is Wow by Post Malone, which actually has better sales and residual airplay, even if it is losing there, but with the weaker streaming it's got, it's probably going to get muscled out, and it had a better run than I think anyone expected. Now that takes us to our losers and dropouts. And again, it looks like there's a fair few respectable songs that are taking their exit, some clinching their year-end spot with songs like Envy Me by Cowboy and When the Party's Over by Billie Eilish. Check my mid-year list to see how I feel about that song. And then tracks like Miss Me More by Kelsey Ballerini and Robbery by Juice WRLD also exiting. In the latter case, thank God. But what looks more interesting are our losers, and let's get through the country and pop country cuts pretty quickly, which seems like they're on a rotation out for the summer and could well miss the year-end list. Look What God Gave Her by Thomas Rhett down to 54, Good As You by Kane Brown at 58, and frustratingly, Love Someone by Brett Eldridge at 88. Then you have the Drake loss for Omerta down to 99 off the debut, and Girls Need Love with Summer Walker down to 74, along with a couple other scattered losses for Sanguine Paradise by Lil Uzi Vert to 89, and Earthquake by Tyler the Creator to 46. Then we had the expected drop-off for Con Calma by Daddy Yankee featuring Snow at 37. I really blame the Katy Perry remix for these losses, but the most interesting loss comes to Taylor Swift, because not only did Me with Brendan Urie tank down to 31, You Need to Calm Down also collapsed to 13. And that's the one I find fascinating because I predicted it could make a run, especially given its sales and burgeoning radio, but the streaming's just not there, especially after YouTube dropped off hard. Again, Taylor Swift, she could be heading into a lot of trouble for this album cycle this summer, and for her landing on a new label after the issues that have come up in the past week, in which I just don't know enough around her attempts to get back to her masters to speak effectively on it, especially given all the hearsay around her contract I'm hearing from each side. Yeah, 2019 could be very rough from her, and I don't envy her for that. Now, on the flip side, we don't really have a lot in terms of returns and gains. I mean, the single returning entry is You Stay by DJ Khaled featuring Meek Mill, J Balvin, Lil Baby, and Jeremiah. I mean, what analytics told them that was a smart choice to push as the next single? I have no idea. Now, as for our gains, look, I'm not surprised that It's You by Ali Ghati made a push to 70 off the debut last week, or that Shot of Flow by NLE Chapo into 48. I'm just annoyed and disappointed because neither song's all that good. I am a little bit pleased that Press by Cardi B got a welcome rebound off the video to 43, but the biggest story comes with our biggest gain. The Get Up by Blanco Brown to 29, where it looks like the whole trap country dance song is following the exact same formula that made Old Town Road work, and this time with Nashville backing it, make no mistake, I would not be surprised if this gets even higher and even faster in the weeks ahead. Which I'm okay with because I like that song too. But now on to our respectable week of new arrivals, starting off with a surprise, for me at least, with number 100, Summer Days by Martin Garrix featuring Macklemore and Patrick Stump. So am I the only one who feels like Martin Garrix's production longevity might be a little bit underrated? I say a bit because he's got a fair share of forgettable tunes, and I still wish I liked Animals a lot more than I do, but he actually got quality work out of BB Rexa of all people with In the Name of Love, and then upgraded with Dua Lipa and Scared to Be Lonely. So if he was able to give Macklemore and Patrick Stump something to work with, this could be pretty cool. And wow, this turned out a fair bit better than I expected. For one, while Patrick Stump's falsetto can be a little hit and miss, Martin Garrix gives him the sort of layering and gravitas that I don't think Fall Out Boy has ever really given him with this specific style. And considering that fat bass groove combined with the sharper grinding elements, it lends the song a swagger and grit to the groove that takes the smoother funk and retro disco that Calvin Harris attempted a couple of years back and then puts it on steroids. I like it. Hell, Macklemore might be the least impressive part of the song until you realize some of the framing of the song is post-hookup and trying to sustain the delicate balance between trying to make it work and then the inherent disposability of the situation in the summer. It's all uncertain, hence the darker tone. And yeah, I like this. I like it a lot, actually. And while I've got no idea how deep it'll penetrate the Hot 100, I'm gonna root for this. Really good song. Number 98, Cash Shit by Megan Thee Stallion featuring DaBaby.
My money thick, ayy.
You know, frankly, I'm just surprised this wasn't being pushed earlier. And I'll admit, I was kind of shocked that Megan Thee Stallion apparently did not get the push from her label for the mini album bomb I thought she could probably get off of Fever. But as a smart single with DaBaby looking for his next hit, this is a good tack to follow too. Shame it's not nearly as sharp as I wish it could be. I highlighted this when I reviewed the album, but for as good as she might sound in her flows, Megan's choice to drop rhymes without any good reason feels unnecessarily sloppy, especially with such minimal production where it's impossible not to notice. You focus on her voice. It's also more of an issue on the first verse and the third, and DaBaby's got this sort of outsized personality to be a really good compliment for her, and that takes us to the content. And here's the thing, I'm not going to begrudge her the very transactional approach that she takes to getting money and dating. If that's what she wants and it's effective, good for her. But the pronounced level of distrust and contempt that she has for her partners in the entire scene does kind of taint the song a little bit, even if DaBaby shows himself as a pretty even match for her. But as a whole, it's the obvious single choice because of the guest star, but I'd argue there are better songs from Fever that at the very least have a little bit more of a tune behind them. It's not bad, but not really great either. Number 72, Out of the Mud by Lil Baby featuring Future.
I feel like you're different when you got it out of mud.
Man, if there's a way to kill my interest in a song in 2019 faster, say it comes from both Lil Baby and Future. Two artists who have long run out of things to say or compelling personality and are solely dependent on their flow and good production to be remotely tolerable. I mean, if it wasn't for the flute melody and the grimy bass coursing through this song, are we really caring that much about the interchangeable flexing from both these two, where Future splits his verse with a bunch of spluttering ad-libs, or how Lil Baby talks about how he can't even keep his perks down and he keeps throwing up? I mean, I thought the song was supposed to be a flex. How is that supposed to make you look good? But that's probably the most scathing indictment of the song. If this is supposedly so different than you get from Out the Mud, that all this wealth, it will mean more to you, Why is there no detail or flair to your writing or delivery to communicate that or emphasize it? Because right now, it sounds like all the same except with more obvious issues in the writing. So no, not a fan of this, and if I can avoid that new Lil Baby project apparently that's coming, better off we will all be. Number 57, One Thing Right by Marshmello and Kane Brown.
But I got one thing right.
Okay, at this point, I think Marshmello is just pouring through his Rolodex and finding who will ever pick up the phone and listen to him. Because where A Day to Remember was out of nowhere, Kane Brown at least kind of makes sense as a name that he might call. And it was also probably gonna suck. I mean, say what you will about Kane Brown, but at least in the snap beats, he tries to ride some sort of groove, none of which I believe that Marshmello could make for him that would work. Because there is a snap beat here, but it's surrounded by hi-hats with guitar where the low end actually clips into the mix, and that flat, buzzy synth that's trying to add muscle or grit, even as the pedal steel tries to fight through, and that's before we try to get a tempo switch up for the bridge that kills whatever groove is even here. And that's even before we get the expected Marshmello issues, an underwhelming drop, a badly compressed mix, and no sense of real dynamics as he just crushes Kane Brown's more unique country tone into auto-tune mush, especially on the outro. And if Kane Brown was trying to make this more of a melancholic love song, where the only thing that he got right was you, why does the melody sound so ominous? I mean, it's the same problem that Jason Aldean has, a melodic tone for a love song that matches with nothing. So yeah, this is complete crap, and any Nashville DJ who plays this on a radio station or a country station should be shot into the sun. Next, number 22, Rodeo by Lil Nas X and Cardi B. I think a lot of people got the impression I was more negative on the Lil Nas X EP than I actually was. Or because I just wasn't all that impressed by all those genre mixing that felt more reminiscent of chasing a sound to make up for underwhelming content and delivery. And while Rodeo was one of the better songs there, these problems are still here. You got a promising Spanish guitar flourish and the horns on the outro, and yet you submerge all of it beneath cheap trap percussion and pretensions to rap rock on the pre-chorus with that guitar tuning, to say nothing about a hook that sounds like Travis Scott trying to remake Mo Bamba. And I actually like Cardi B's attention to a more dangerous vibe on the 8 bars she actually contributed, but let's not act that it was complex or all that interesting coming out of her. She's done better. She could have done more here, especially as she comes across as so much more potent as a presence overall. And while I get that slightly curdled vibe is supposed to represent the tumultuous relationship, I get the rodeo metaphor. If you outright say that you didn't care what she thought and are trying to foster her independence, and that is a line that never works, by the way, why do I feel like this relationship is more precarious and that your sullen quasi-apology isn't gonna fly? Now, here's the thing. Despite saying all that, there are the seeds of a workable song here. I actually think it's pretty okay, but it is underwritten and really quite undercooked, so I'm just not about to call it all that good. That's all. Number 20, Megatron by Nicki Minaj.
Head up when I'm drinking. I tune up when I'm drinking.
Why do I feel like the buzz for this song just came and went? Now, I'll freely admit I probably have never been that much of a Nicki Minaj fan, but if I'm her and I'm not preparing for this to go into free fall after the sales on YouTube fall away, we could well get a repeat of her summer from last year, and I don't think anyone wants that. Anyway, the song. Honestly, she couldn't have just done the proper single push for Ganja Burn if she was going for this sound, especially given the guitar foundation that actually had a distinctive hook on Ganja Burn and didn't have to rely on her really badly auto-tuned singing. It's not like the percussion hits that hard to drive a distinctive groove beyond the blatant sampling, or that Nicki's utterly limp party hook adds much here, until you realize that this song might as well serve as a commercial for her Moscato brand with a bunch of interchangeable flexing and sex references, and her talking about hitting the blunt and getting drunk. I mean, once you add that context, it kind of makes sense why people ditch this song pretty quickly, because there's just so little actually here. It's not terrible, but I don't see it lasting. Next, number 16, Panini by Lil Nas X.
Me to go, why you tryna keep me teeny? It's a dreamy, wished it on a genie.
And back to the point of people missing the point of my criticisms on Lil Nas X's EP when I did the review. Some folks got the impression that I came down on this song because it was referencing a cartoon relationship, which he's now saying is a metaphor to his relationship with his fans who couldn't handle him when he got big. Okay, fair enough. I didn't grow up with the cartoon Chowder, I'll accept it as a point of his reference, and I'll even accept his question of the fan of what they really want from him, from which they probably don't have many clear answers. But for a guy in his position, I can't help but think that it's kind of presumptuous to say that he doesn't want the fan compared to the new car, or the assumption that he's always gonna win, especially given the novelty of his success right now, because really, I know the chart history, that's what happens in this case. And more to the point, if he builds his hook off of an interpolation of Nirvana's In Bloom, while still sounding like a low-rent Travis Scott on a song that can't even run 2 minutes long, I'm gonna be left with the impression that the song is undercooked and kinda derivative, especially with how the percussion is so clumsily blended and the synth line feels so unsupported. Now don't get me wrong, again, this is not bad, but it's not really something I'm inclined to revisit much. That's all, and honestly, I wish there was more to like. That's it. And finally, number 2, Senorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello.
Pretend I didn't need ya.
On some level, I'm not remotely surprised this is happening. I mean, sure, I didn't like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but that song did have some proven success in the mainstream and a decent pulse to it, and I had to hope that with Shawn Mendes having a slightly more consistent record as of the past year or so, and with Camila Cabello cutting a good song with Mark Ronson, we could get quality here. And well, I get the appeal, which is entirely rooted in real-life shipping fodder and the video, and I think the song is moving in the right direction for the both of them, trying to lean into some gentler sensuality, lyrics that imply a greater connection with some modest amount of cleverness to them, even though I'm still kind of on the fence with that first line of the hook is structured, with only Camila saying me while the duo sings in unison for all the other words. Not quite sure that works, and you know what, I can hear the mechanism to make this work. And that, in a strange way, might be the problem. While Shawn Mendes' multi-tracking is doing some heavy lifting to imply some gravitas, I'm not sure he's got a lot of chemistry and smolder with Camila, who still remains a very shrill and frustrating singer who doesn't seem to have much subtlety in her delivery. If there is chemistry here, it feels very manufactured rather than organic. And while it may be kind of a cheap shot to compare her to her old peers in Fifth Harmony, I can't help but remember when Normani teamed up with Khalid for Love Lies, or when Lauren worked with Halsey on Strangers. Hell, you can make the argument that Normani and Sam Smith had more chemistry on Dancing with a Stranger. And that sort of obvious effort kind of undercuts the smolder this song is attempting to pull off, even if I do kind of mostly like the production behind it. And you know what, on that note, it is getting the honorable mention of the week for better than expected organic production and some effective song construction. Although, compared to the best of the week and Summer Days from Martin Garrix, Macklemore, and Patrick Stump, it's not even close. Seriously, I want Summer Days to be a hit. It's got a lot of promise. Now, for the worst of the week, it's even easier, with One Thing Right by Marshmello and Kane Brown being a total disaster, and Out the Mud from Lil Baby and Future easily getting that dishonorable mention. Now, next week, I mean, it would be a miracle if Freddie Gibbs broke through, but DJ Mustard or maybe even the Black Keys might be more likely. 2019's had surprises, we'll have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll